Mathematics is filled with all kinds of interesting exceptions and bizarre happenstances, and some of them are quite mind-boggling. You start to get exposed to a little bit of that in this course, just a little bit of it. I want to show you a problem which has no answer. And well, how can that be? Well, there are algebra problems which have no solution. There are algebra problems with more than one answer. There are problems with infinitely many answers. So, you know, it's wide open. And you've, up to now, I'm sure you've seen problems with one or probably two answers if you've done quadratics. I'm sure you probably have. But here's a problem which has actually no answer to it. So, and there's a purpose in me showing this to you, because we're going to run into some problems in this course which we've done everything apparently correctly in solving, but yet we produce wrong answers. And so it's something we need to confront. Okay, well, I'm going to write the problem on the board. Okay, here's our problem. Solve 5x plus 2 parentheses 1 minus 2x equals 3x minus the quantity 2x plus 5. When I say the word the quantity, or the phrase the quantity, it means it's in parentheses. Alright, well, it looks innocuous enough, another typical equation. So let's see what happens when we solve this. I'm going to first remove the parentheses by distributing. And over here we're distributing the negative sign. It's like distributing -1 times everything inside there. So I end up with 5x plus 2 times 1, 2. 2 times minus 2x is minus 4x equals 3x, and here the negative is going to change these signs, minus 2x minus 5. Alright, so far so good. And let's simplify each side. So these will combine. 5x minus 4x is x. So I have x plus 2. Here I've got 3x minus 2x is x. X minus 5. And now it's going to start looking a little strange because, well, what else can you do here? You could try to isolate x by subtracting x from both sides, but when you subtract x from both sides, x entirely disappears. Disappears here. I've got a 2 and a negative 5. So I end up with 2 equals negative 5. That's obviously impossible. But what it says is that no matter what number you plug in for x, you're going to end up with an impossible situation. 2 equals negative 5 is certainly impossible. And so what do you do? What do you conclude? Well, there is no answer to this problem. You cannot find an x that will balance this equation. And so I need to write a conclusion. I'm going to put no solution here. So now communication is important to me. So if you get down to this point and just leave it there, then I'm going to count off because you haven't told me that you understood the problem. You know, the problem is that these steps showed that there was no solution to it. All right, so there's a problem with no answer to it. And in my book, and I really hope you're reading the book I've spent many hours writing, I show an even simpler example of this. And it's kind of easy to just look at that problem and say, well, it's impossible. Because no number can equal one more than itself. Excuse me. Well, this is a little more complicated. It's not obvious from a first glance that this is going to be impossible. But it is. I would like to explore why we get problems like this. There's actually a geometry behind a lot of what we do in algebra. In fact, most of what we do has its own geometry aspect to it. And so and it's interesting to compare the geometry of this problem with that of a more normal problem. Alright, so you should be aware of problems like this. And also another thing I want to really make clear is that when you're solving and you end up with something like this, no solution. But if you solve a problem, get an answer, and you plug it in, and you go through all that work, checking your arithmetic, and you get something like this, It doesn't mean no solution. It means the problem is wrong. So please keep that straight, because that's another one of those common errors people make. They misunderstand when you check a problem and you get something like this. That means your answer is wrong or your checking was wrong. When you're solving and all the x's disappear and you get this, something like this, then that means there's no solution. So big difference there in that. And I've seen a lot of students through the years who have confused that issue.